Or maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, they wanted him to cooperate, which Lucci would do a life sentence before he would say one word on anybody.
Yeah.
And so
I think that people were super surprised. We heard no statement from him.
nothing.
Even when they claimed that there was an attack on him from YSL members in the jail, still nothing. Never told on anyone else. Had a murder charge. And essentially got out pretty much on time served, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, he did a little bit of time, but the big thing is that we got the district attorney. The big thing we wanted was her to write a letter to the parole board saying no objection to him getting early released. That was the linchpin that we fought for.
Oh, that's Fonnie Willis.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to get started because I got to get into all of this.
Okay.
This might take a while. All these cases, I feel like I've covered so much. But anyway, welcome to another episode of Off the Record Podcast. Woody Academics in the building. I'm here with the $1 billion lawyer himself. One of listen, they say heroes, some true heroes don't really wear capes, and this guy wears. I can't imagine how much that suit costs. Okay, I'm here with one of the greatest lawyers in the land, representing some of the biggest hip hop artists in the world, and he's done a fine job with almost everything I've ever seen him associated with. I'm here with none other than Drew Finland himself, man. How you doing, brother?
Great to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you, man. Tell me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if lawyers kind of are chummy like this, but I've said this on my stream a lot of times. I said there's like a big three. Right, you know, I know Kendrick says he don't like the big three, but there's a big three of lawyers, and I say from the Atlanta area. That's where you operate, right?
Yeah. But I'm everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Well, we see you everywhere now. You're in New Jersey. I say we got Drew Finland, Brian Steele, and Steven Sano. Yeah. And I say that's the three. There might be others. I don't slight anyone, but those are the three. Every time I'm seeing huge cases and I'm seeing favorable results, I'm like, these are the guys you need to call. Am I right with that?
Well, those are great lawyers. I'm a cheerleader of everybody that does this profession. As we talked about earlier, you know, I was president of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. So I'm a criminal defense lawyer, man. I bleed for the women and men of my profession. So those are great lawyers. But my community is filled with other as well, really dedicated, hardworking people. That do cases that, you know, you and even I don't know about, but they're in the trenches every day. And they're fighting tough murder cases, not getting paid. I'm a big supporter of public defenders. So I kind of I call myself the socialist lawyer. I kind of put us all in an equal plane. And if things work out well for some of us, then that's cool. I celebrate everybody, though. But I hear you.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that here. Like, I've seen you work some magic, and we're gonna get into it. I do want to kind of get to start with your history, though, because how does one? And I do know a bunch of aspiring attorneys who they want to be the person that's repping the stars. Yeah. How do you get to elevate to that position where the rich, famous, the stars or rappers or whoever else, usually celebrities, they're calling your line to have you defend their freedom, something they probably cherish the most? How do you get to that point?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I give speeches all over the country, and I always get asked that question. I think a few rules. One, you got to try cases. Like, you got to be in front of the people, and you have to be savvy in front of a jury. You have to be somebody that can be a true persuader of people, and all people. Not just lawyers, just not the media, but really talking to 12 people, trying to convince them that somebody that's charged with murder with 5 eyewitnesses is not guilty of those charges. And so you got to be a great persuader of people. And the only way to do that is to get in there and from the moment you have an opportunity to try as many cases as possible. The other thing is, don't try to be one of the famous people. Like when you and I talk today, we're going to talk about Gucci. To me, he's just Raydrick. CEOP, I tell him all the time, I don't even know who that is because you're Henry's son, Pierre. Yeah. Coach K, man, you're Kevin to me. You got to remember that anybody that's famous, Lil Baby is just Dominique. And I talked to him on the way over here. It's Dominique. You have to relate to them as the person they are, not the performer they are. They rather you do that. They don't want you to treat them as a performer. And the other thing I tell lawyers is, like, if you're going to represent people in the music industry, man, don't sit there and, you know, fly to Dubai so you could take Instagram pictures and look like a rapper. That's just stupid. The great people in this industry, they want, like, you to be a great lawyer. I mean, these people that are successful in music and in hip hop, they're freaking brilliant. Like, I can't finish Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue. But man, they could just string shit together over and over again. I saw on one of the shows that one of my favorite people, John Kirk, the baby, he was on some show and he just started freestyling for like 3 minutes. I don't know, something crazy.
No, he's good at that.
I called him up and I'm like, you're crazy. You're so amazing. And I know because of our relationship that guy's got like an IQ off the charts. And so they all share that in common. They're all young and brilliant people. And so they're looking at your lawyer skills. They are observing whether or not you have a crisp cross-examination, whether you communicate effectively to a judge. So you got to be the best lawyer you can to pass muster with those folks.
You bring up a very interesting point. So, like, what you're describing to me, I'm like, you have a charisma about you, but I think you're exactly right. You don't try to just be around the rappers. And don't try to be in that lifestyle. I remember there was a lawyer, and I think this is like the opposite of that, where I guess you have to walk a fine line, because the opposite of being on too far on the other side. I remember Max B, and Max B, like, he did an interview with his lawyer, and his lawyer kind of felt like the rapper than him. Then he got 99 years, and then people were like, yo, the lawyer was cool with the interview, but what happened in court? How do you prevent from being the person who's maybe media-wise you're getting talked about, but you're like chucking these cases, because again, the results does matter in your business, right?
Yeah, and you know, that's another thing I talk to young lawyers about all the time. Like, when all's said and done, it really depends how effective you are in trials. Like, even if you're going to ultimately get a great deal, you get a great deal if you're a great trial lawyer. It's not negotiating skills. It's your ability to win. People are scared because they know, oh shit, this may take 3 weeks. It may take 3 months. It may take a year, but this dude's going to come in and win the case. That's how you get a great deal. And the way that you're effective as a lawyer is communicating with everyday people. So it doesn't really help me to go to a club and hang out with rappers, because that's not how my jury's going to be. So when you and I go to a restaurant, you're going to go like, man, what's up with Drew? He's not even talking to me tonight. He's talking to the servers, because the server who's going to be on the jury. And so if somebody's doing construction at my house, I'm talking to them constantly, because I kind of want to know who they are and what appeals to them, because that's what's going to help me win. And it's not going to help me win to just hang out with a bunch of rappers at a club. It doesn't help me at all. It's a little bit of foolishness from my perspective.
Yeah. What was the first notable case that involved a musician that you remember having represented?
Let's see, like an actual musician.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to get like a kind of a string of famous people. I got to help Shaquille O'Neal when I was young. I got to help Dennis Rodman. So they were famous, and then the famous.
Are these criminal cases, or it might be civil?
Yeah.
And like do you do civil?
Only like high-level civil cases will be choosy. But I got to help them in some situations. So things started rolling in, and then I started representing Gucci.
Yeah.
And then
that was for the gun case, right?
Yes.
Federal
but
gun.
First Harlem Nights.
Okay.
Yeah, first it was the fight at Harlem Nights. And then I met a young guy behind a plexiglass window that was charged with a case that had kind of an unknown lawyer that his mom had paid hardly anything for, but he was starting to get a little gravitas, named Chiari Cephas, who's Offset.
Ooh,
and then the
yeah.
Migos thing started. And so it was Gucci, it was Migos, and then it was Waka. I went to trial in his case, got a not guilty in his gun case. And then, as we said at the office, we couldn't keep up with the phone calls after that. And then the out-of-state phone call started. And since then, literally, we get phone calls on everybody. Even if it doesn't ultimately become our case, we just hear from people on cases, and we're happy to just talk to them. It's been nonstop.
Do you turn down those cases? Like now, like these days, is it a mutual thing where they might not go with you and you might turn it down as well? Or do you usually take any case that is offered?
So that's a great question. It has to be the way we want to do the case. So we're not going to jump in a case last minute. and we know what it takes because we have bandwidth, right? We're 5 lawyers, and we think that we have a method of how to win cases, and then we'll partner up with some people in other parts of the country. And so it has to be our way or the highway. And so we need a lot of time to work on a case because from the beginning, we're developing the case so that ultimately we can win the case. And then there's finances that are involved, and they're generally non-negotiable.
Oh, really? Yeah. I've heard lightly about that. I definitely want to prowl a little bit into that. But for example, let's stick with, you made a very important point. And by the way, of course, for everybody watching, we're going to get into some of the names of who's represented. Of course, also Dirk, who is currently in federal custody, which a lot of people are interested in that case. But for example, if it was a situation like we just seen recently in Diddy's case, Brian Steele just got added as a co-counsel, and he's kind of added like pretty much 2 weeks or 3 weeks before trial. Could you work with a situation like that? Because again, that doesn't seem as Brian Steele is obviously we just seen what he did, but we don't know if he's going to run the show. It looks like they probably already had like some plan already in motion. What would you have done in that situation if they asked you?
Well, I know a lot about that case. We'll just leave it at that.
They hollered at you.
Yeah. Well,
Diddy got the money now. Come on now.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, I don't kiss and tell. But I know a lot about that situation and that case from way back, and we all do things differently, and so I like to get a case in the beginning, in the inception, and influence the trajectory of the case. And as you know, because I admire your knowledge that you've gathered, which is better than probably 90% of the lawyers I know. You know that from the beginning, you want to influence your type of motions that you want to file, because your motions are dictating like the direction you're going to take with the case. So for example, you see a motion to eliminate. A motion to eliminate to me is like when you buy a game for your kids and it gives you the instructions on the rules of what you can and can't do. That's what a motion to eliminate is. So I want to influence from the beginning the rules that I want to apply to the case, because I know that vision I have for 9 months or a year down the road. And so for me personally, it's really tough to get in a case at the end. Plus, there's just so many reservations at my restaurant. My practice. And so it's difficult for us to just jump into something because we're booked up. We're booked up for a while. And usually if you get a case, like somebody calls me right now, the case may not go to trial for a year or two. So it would be difficult. But if I'm going to do a case, it's going to be the way that I want to do it. And it's going to be the team that I assemble. Although I will tell you that I think Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos are great people, and they're super dedicated, man. They have given their life to the case. Literally, they've given their life to the case.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that turns out. I always wanted to ask this, and I'm guessing a lot of people watching are probably thinking the same question. And we got to hear it from a top tier criminal legal expert out there. If say I killed somebody. And I hire you, should I tell you I did it, or should I just be like, this is the charge, and you go from there? Like, do you like for the person to tell you the truth? Like, all right, listen, no cameras on. This attorney-client privilege. Did you shoot him? Because you might be able to use that knowledge to form a defense, or do you like to just operate with what's charged and what's the evidence and figure out how you could deconstruct that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and get it asked all the time. And it really doesn't play that way. Like, no one comes in and they'll say like, hey man, I just wasted a dude, but let's say I didn't do it. There's usually what I call black and white cases and then gray cases. A black and white case is like, hey man, I want to hire you for this murder case, but I got to tell you, I was 75 miles away at the time and I have 7 witnesses to say it. Tried those cases, okay? Then there's the gray cases where they come in and they're like, hey Drew, I wasted that dude. I mean, I shot him and I shot him good, but you know why I shot him? Because that dude threw 3 punches at me and then reached in his pocket and I knew he was going to pull out a knife or a gun. That's a great case. And so someone under those circumstances is going to tell you that they did it, but affirmatively that their defense is, but here's the reason why they did it. So I personally never had anybody come in and do the whole, like, I did it, but let's come up with some bullshit story.
Oh, and then be like, I crashed out. I just crashed out.
Yeah.
You know?
No, normally it's a self-defense case when someone comes in and they tell you they did, or I've done the accident cases where, yeah, I did it, but it was an accident. Let me explain to you, you know, the gun went off on accident, you know, that kind of thing. So they'll say they did it, but there'll be an explanation. And that kind of goes to other cases as well, like a fraud case. Yeah, I did it, but my accountant said it was the correct thing to do.
Are there ever cases where you look at the allegations and you're like, yeah, I want no parts of that? In terms of, it could be just heinous acts that the person's accused of. It could be child molestation. It could be sex trafficking, whatever it could be. But you're like, you know what? This might end up being some high profile stuff. This could be a reputation hit. If I'm the person defending you, and especially the evidence is kind of seems already super compelling and overwhelming. Yeah, I don't want to touch this. Do you make those decisions?
Yeah. So I always say that we don't turn away a case because of the nature of the charge. Just like we don't turn away a case because of the race of the person or the ethnicity or the sexual orientation of them. In like fashion, we don't look at the charge because I think that's the downfall of our profession. Respectfully to people, I mean, like I said in the beginning, man, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I support my sisters and brothers that do this all over the country and stand with them in all their cases, whether they're public defenders or doing high profile work. I just think the system topples when we turn down cases. That being said, if you're going to come into my office and you're going to tell me this is how we're going to run the case, and a lot of con people do this, okay, then you can get on your Nikes, open the door, and run away as fast as you can, because I'm not going to represent you, because again, it's my way or the highway, because I'm the lawyer. So some people will come in and think they could dictate to you, okay, maybe because they have a lot of money. And when that happens, I don't want to mess with it. They can leave.
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of what reportedly, or actually she put out via letter, Sean Hawley said about Tory Lanez. She basically said, hey, I advised him that going to court with this strategy is a losing strategy and that we should potentially consider a plea deal. And obviously Tory's like, fuck out of here. Like, yo, I got the money. We're going to trial. She stepped down. If you and a client have a disagreement about whether you should either take it to trial or consider a plea deal, or maybe even a method of how it should go to trial. Like, for example, I think in that situation, they were exploring the option of Tory being on the stand, and they ran some mock things, and they're like, yeah, this is not going to work. And Tory was like, no, let's do it. And now you're getting paid still. Yeah. But do you ethically step down, or you say, well, as long as the funds keep coming in, because you say that's non-negotiable. Do you try their way and be like, as long as you know this is on you, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, how do you do it?
So let's start with this. Sean's a close friend of mine, but I don't even know about this. We don't talk about stuff like that. I literally don't know anything about that case because I'm so busy with my own cases. Yeah. And so literally I haven't even had this conversation with her. But if the client wants to go to trial, let's crank it up. I mean, why else do this? I love trying cases. That's like, you know, why did I do this in the first place? I didn't do this stand at a podium and enter a plea. Yeah. You know, that's boring as shit. You know, cranking it up. You kidding? It's like you can't even describe the high of being in trial. It is the coolest thing in the world.
Really?
Like when I talk to other trial lawyers, even like civil lawyers that, you know, do what I do. I was in Houston with the lawyers, you know, we filed that massive lawsuit in the death of Takeoff. Yeah. And it's the greatest civil team in the country. This just bang up, you know, Hall of Fame lawyers.
By the way, how is that going?
It's going good.
Update on that.
We're in the deposition stage. Okay. And you know, we love his mom and Takeoff, may he rest in peace. Just one of the greatest guys of all time.
Speaking about that, so on the criminal side, it feels like things kind of hit a roadblock, or it seems really slow. They did charge a guy, but he's out on bond. We're hearing, like, you know, I think some of this is misinformation, that the charges aren't really going to go anywhere. The civil pursuit, and in most civil pursuits that have a criminal charge associated with it, you guys are constantly looking over the other side to say, okay, so what's going on with that? That would help us in proving some negligence and proving whatever to get whatever damages and, you know, punitive damages we need. Has that been difficult with the Takeoff situation?
No, we're not, because we've not named any individuals. We only named corporate entities, so we don't really care what's happening in the criminal case.
Oh,
no individuals have been named by our team. That's That's separate. We just named the corporate entities, the
mall?
real estate entities, exactly.
And there was a store there. Okay.
Yes, there's security or lack thereof. So we really have nothing to do with that. That being said, I love his family so much that we do keep track of what's going on, just so I can kind of interpret for the family what's going on, particularly his wonderful mom. But in terms of the civil case, there's no connection. So I'm going to go back to your question because I want to answer it. So if a client wants to go to trial, we're never going to twist their.
Aspen Dental offers same-day appointments so you can get the care you need. Get in today.
Mother's Day in America, a time to honor all mothers on this special day. Your strength and care instill purpose in your career and as you raise children in loving homes where they can flourish and grow. You are vigilant over the activities of your household in your family's Christ-centered life. GCU celebrates you today and every day. Happy Mother's Day from Grand Canyon University.
The biggest club tournament in the world is down to the Final Four.
This one means everything.
And I can't wait to watch it all live with you and a few of my closest friends. Stream the UEFA Champions League semi-finals on the Beckham & Friends live show on Paramount+.
Their arm and make them go to trial. But if we're going to go to trial, we're not going to put up some bullshit like make-believe stuff. We're just not going to do that. Ethically, we can't do that. I don't know if that happened in this case. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But, we're going to try the case. And we believe in, you mentioned focus groups. Focus groups are great if you can afford them, right? That's one of the things that you got to have money to have because focus groups are amazing, right? I mean, to get...
Is it usually like roundabout accurate with the results it kind of yields?
Focus groups are... They're amazing, man.
Yeah.
Think about when you do a focus group, like if you came to one of our focus groups, in New York, it's the same ones where like Fritos is testing, right? Where people are doing hand sanitizer, behind the window. And that's how those products by these billion-dollar companies, this is how they're deciding what kind of corn chip to sell. And so they've proven their accuracy. We use the same exact facilities. And they are incredibly helpful. And the thing is that
how expensive, by the way?
They're expensive. They're really expensive. And one of the problems now, like to get super technical, because I know you like that, is in federal cases. One of the challenges. So, for example, when we talk about Dirk, I'm a little bit limited. I'm a lot limited because of protective orders, which in federal cases you don't see those in state cases. So protective orders are signed. Everybody signed, and you can't talk about 95% of the case because you sign it away. Like you literally have to sign that you won't leave your laptop in an unattended vehicle. That's how important it is. And so the reason
is this all because I in the Diddy case, I remember they felt people were like yapping their mouth, and they shut that down. There's a bunch of protective order that the judge signed. In Dirk's case, they did too. Is that usual for most federal criminal cases?
It's usual in high-end cases.
Okay.
In high-end cases. And so the reason is that becomes difficult because you really can't do a focus group, right? So you're at a disadvantage. It's difficult to do a focus group if 95 to 99% of the things you want to put in front of these 12, 14 people from the community, you can't even put in front of them because it's blocked by the protective order. But they're prevalent in the big cases. And the other restraining thing in the Southern District of New York, because you're talking about Diddy's case, in the Southern District of New York, and I think in D.C., Boston, and Philadelphia, there are local rules that really tie the hands of the parties being able to talk about the case.
Really?
So, yeah. So that's one of the issues that has really come up. And where I am really empathetic to Diddy's defense team and to, Mark and Tenny for all these months, 9 months they've been working on this, is that you'll see that a lot of time the U.S. Attorney's Office will do what's called a speaking indictment, right? It's just an indictment that tells the story, most of which will never go back with a jury, but the cat's out of the bag, and then you can't really respond to it in those districts, right? Because you want to just you just want to go to the courthouse steps and just go crazy about a bunch of bullshit. But you really can't. Your hands are tied. And of course, as you know, in the beginning, Mark was trying his best to address it, and then it became an issue with the court.
Yeah. Do you ever have a conflict of interest? I'm gonna give you two situations. For example, let's say the person who is accused of murder and takeoff said, "Hey, I need Drew. I need him to represent me." And in that conflict of interest, let's remove the civil case that you're associated with. Imagine if it was just, "Hey, listen, I'm really close with the family. This is someone who, obviously I had a relationship with, I cared about, but now the person that's accused of murdering him wants to just hire me as a lawyer." Does that ever play in, and do you have to make an ethical choice or just a choice to say, "Hey, I can't do this"?
Yeah, all the time. We just don't do the cases. Yeah, if there's a high profile murder and unfortunately in the music industry, there's so many of these things going on, and people contact us. I mean, I get, I get DMs constantly.
I can imagine.
And we just can't do the cases. We just can't do them.
One last thing before we get to the Dirk case, as much as we could talk about. RICO cases. I've always said, I think federal RICO specifically, but really any conspiracy case, even if it comes and originates in state court, they're kind of made and fitted that it's pretty much almost just impossible to beat outright. So you end up with usually either plea deals after it drags for so long because they're usually so loaded, it takes a while. Or even if you don't get found guilty of all of the things alleged in there, you'll get found guilty of some of these, like what they call predicate offenses or whatever,
right.
Like one or two of them. You get what I'm saying? You might beat the top one, but then you still get found. And it's still RICO. It feels like it's been targeted to, or they're using against rappers more and more, right? What are your thoughts about it? What's your strategy as an attorney for it? And what advice do you have to rappers who are scared of it?
Yeah, wow. You
like that, right?
You got 45 minutes? Okay, the roller coaster is getting ready to take off.
Let's go.
Strap yourself on. Let me tell you what RICO is. I love baseball, okay? And there was an era in baseball where baseball was like, all the games were like 1-0, 2-0, and everybody stopped going to games. And then everybody started shooting up steroids. And everybody was just hitting home runs out of the freaking park.
My man, Mark McGwire.
Exactly. It made baseball easier. It made hitting a baseball easier. It just did. All of a sudden, no one can get to 61 home runs. Now 61 was bullshit. Everybody was just like getting close, and then bam. That's what RICO is. RICO is for the weak-leg prosecutor that's scared of losing because they know it makes things easier, because you don't have to prove those offenses. You just have to show a pattern of behavior. And so RICO to a prosecutor is steroids to a baseball player in the 90s. It just makes their job easier. And so then you combine that with this crazy madness template in Fulton County, Georgia, right? I mean, the same template, if you took YFN, YSL, the former president of the United States, and 3 other indictments I can show you right now, and just laid them down next to one another, it's the same thing.
You mean the current president?
Right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Back at that time, when the indictment, yes. 45 and 47. But 45, at the time the indictment came down, he was a former president. Right?
Exactly.
You're exactly right. If you took them down and you laid them down side by side, they're all the same. It's the same template. And that template is what took forever to try a case. And it just it just drags on and it drones on. And the reason why, at least in the music industry, it is such bullshit and so unfair. Look at some of those overt acts. Right? A picture. I mean, it would be literally a picture at a gas station. Okay, like I have them, of clients. So a client goes to their old neighborhood, takes a picture, and now they're going back there. And the Instagram picture is an overt act to support a RICO allegation. And so these predicate acts are what take so long, and why you have these cases that take 6 months, 9 months, a year to try.
That's just the interesting thing. And I read a whole bunch on it, but I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. The overt acts, which I think this is such a clever way, and you're right, this definitely helps the prosecutor. So the overt acts aren't even crimes themselves. It's like, well, the reason why he went to the store is because he was getting a supply for the crime, right? Going to the store isn't a crime, but if you claim it's a conspiracy, going to the store to get the items for the crime, it's an overt act. And at that point, you can kind of make up anything, right? Hey, well, if someone booked some flights for his homies to go to somewhere, right? Or if some flights are booked, you could be like, well, they booked it for the murder. No. These guys follow him around everywhere. They go on vacation together. They go to the studio together. But it's up to the interpretation. How do you fight it as a criminal defense attorney?
Well, first of all, let me just say this. It's not even going to the store to buy anything. It's just a picture of you being at the store.
Hell yeah.
You're at the store that's in a neighborhood that you shouldn't be in because apparently a prosecutor that's sitting in their office has decided that act can't be in that neighborhood. And so they make it an overt act. And what you got to do is you got to take it on, and you got to take it head on. And you have to, that's why, to be in these cases in the very, very beginning is so important, because you have to go after all that, and you have to tell whatever judge you're in front of, like, look, we need to take the scalpel to these cases.
Neutrogena's Hydro Boost Water Gel is the secret I just couldn't keep, because everyone deserves skin this juicy and hydrated. Available at Walmart now.
Get your kiddo back to playtime in no time. Pediatrician's #1 choice for fast relief, Children's Tylenol.
Workday's done. Scroll right to that $6 Popeyes Big Box and settle in. Fast forward to that Cajun Spice plot twist. Live it up, Little Miss Rewatch.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
As a small business owner, your time is precious and every dollar counts. Digital marketing shouldn't be complicated. That's where DirectHub comes in. From local SEO and display ads to Google advertising, email marketing, and website builds, DirectHub helps you grow your business and reach your audience. All you have to do is select, click, and check out. With our wallet-friendly digital marketing platform, we make it easy to grow your business without the headache. Sign up now and start growing your business today.
And then what they'll do, and this is what Fulton County did, is they'll just list 500 witnesses. 80 to 90% of them, they never even interviewed.
Hey, I was watching the case, and they played one of my videos, and the prosecutor said, according to the DJ Academics video, and then the judge said, well, we're not going to use this unless you get DJ Academics in here. And the prosecutor was mulling it over, and I'm thinking, what the hell? No one's ever contacted me about it. You guys are using bloggers. This is crazy, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so we look at some of these cases, and because we represent so many of these people, I'll call them up, and I'll call up somebody famous and go, you're on a witness list? Like, what are you talking about? And so
they tried to do it to put Lucci's name as a witness, like he agreed on YSL's case. And I think you did a great job of clearing that up. You knocked it out of the park. You said, fuck out of here.
Exactly. And there were other people on there. I don't even want to say their names. But there were other people on their case and on our case. And there was no way. No one ever contacted us. I mean, here, I'm Drew Finland. Reach out to me. You want to call me? You want to talk to me? Nobody ever called me. I said that over and over again in interviews. I haven't heard from anybody. But if you're going to call, here's your answer. He's not testifying now or ever. But that's what they do. And it just takes up so much time. And where we fortunately went second in YFN, and where our judge started, because, we were battling this judge for 3 years, keeping Lucci in, where our judge started seeing the light during those first 3 weeks is in these rulings he was making, he started seeing the light. And I would constantly tell him, even though he had a bunch of lawyers, I would constantly say, Judge, look what's going on downstairs.
Because you guys are in the same building, right?
Same building. Wow. Do we want that? And then it became really clear.
They went through
clear.
3
God
judges. Thank you.
Yeah, it became really clear to our judge. Our judge started making these rulings, and then it looked like things were going to go in a really different direction. So you just have to attack all that crap that's in that template. It's the same template. But the other thing that's really unfair about it is how many lawyers can give up that much of their life to try these cases. And they lose all of them. All these cases fall apart. Where's one that, the case that involved the election in 2020, that had an expiration date on that case. That case was never going to go anywhere the way it was drafted. Zero chance. It was never going to go anywhere. It was just going to die, which it has basically died. The YSL case, okay? just dragged on and on.
By the way, the election interference case, especially after they started the probe into Fani and the special prosecutor, I thought Fani was done, but then I realized the demographic down there because she got reelected again. Is she done with these RICO charges against these large groups? I think she learned her lesson, right? Like you went at the president, that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
You went at YSL, wasted so much of taxpayer dollars, right? And also you wasted the resources of these guys, but you're wasting taxpayer dollars. Lost that. Got no significant or substantial convictions with YFN. What's the point? You're wasting money, right?
Totally, and they need to come to an end. And hopefully they have come to an end because, you know, if you go back to 2022, so, you know, my office is in Fulton County. I live in Fulton County. I love Fulton County. One of my kids is a public defender in Fulton County. One of my attorneys was a public defender, who's my son, is what our office. So in 2022, if you look at what happened when these cases were all kind of, you know, hitting 100 miles an hour, the jail population surged to 3 times its limit. It fit, I don't know, like 1,150 people. I think we got 3,400. I think in 2022, 24 people died. I think 8 or 9 of them were from murders. And it's not the sheriff's fault. The sheriff can't move cases. But when the district attorney's office is taking their eye off the ball, when the district attorney's office is pouring resources into these multiple ridiculous RICO cases that ultimately all fall apart, they all fall apart. And then you're doing this other case regarding the election, all your attention is focused on other things and your other cases are just not moving. And then you have tragedy. And tragedy is overpopulation in a jail where, irrespective of the fact that these people are charged with crimes, these people that are in this jail deserve to not be bunked up twice as much, sleeping on floors, sleeping on mattresses on the floor. That's just bullshit. That's just unfair. That's everything un-American was taking place. So the lesson, as you said, needs to be learned. Stop all that garbage. Focus on what you have in front of you. Learn from back in the old mob cases. Remember Pizza Connection and all those big mafia cases? The Department of Justice learned in the late 80s and 90s, you can't do 9-month or year trials. It doesn't work. If they learn their lesson, then little old Fulton County should take a look at what happened there and just go back to 2 and 3 week trials and not do the crap that they've been doing.
Yeah. What advice would you give to the rappers who are, I'm going to be honest with you, I've spoke to rappers in and around the Atlanta area, and they're definitely, and it's not an indication they're doing something wrong, but they don't want to get caught up in something, right? You know, a lot of these guys come from, oh, these are my crew, these are my friends. Yeah. Then they start making it a record label, and then it turns into something else. And then now people become a little bit concerned because they're like, hey, you know, for example, in the case with, like, say, well, not the case, but the situation with Lil Baby, you have the police, I don't know if it was a commissioner, but one of the police, probably lieutenants or something, they came out and they had a whole press conference. They said, hey, this guy, we're going to hold him accountable. He shouldn't have had that music video shoot in that neighborhood, right? And then subsequently, we hear just rumors that there might be another RICO coming. How do you avoid that? Like, how do you even, you know, you say you spoke to me, not to repeat whatever you said, but how do you give someone advice? Because it looks like Baby's trying to stay out of the way, right?
So Dominique Jones is such a fine young man. A Lil Baby, Dominique Jones. I mean, this is a guy that I talk to regularly. This is a guy that I care deeply about. I've known him from the beginning. A little information about him. You know, as you know, he served a few years in jail. I've gotten him 2 national speaking engagements. And I mean, he stole the show. I had him speak to a packed audience about prisoner reentry issues. He put him on a panel in Atlanta. Mike Epps, the comedian, was my honorary co-chair, flew in. He was my co-chair. We did this program when I was president of NECDL, packed. We had prosecutors, judges, defense lawyers, standing room only. I mean, people that worked at the hotel were out there that had records listening. And Dominique was like just doing this amazing presentation. Then after he did the bigger picture, right, which, as you know, was really thematically the story about post-George Floyd, I got him a national, it was virtual because it was in the height of COVID. I got him a national speaking engagement. I mean, he spoke to lawyers from coast to coast, from border to border. So the guy is amazing in his turnaround. So shame on anybody that throws shade at him. I mean, shame on them. They need to look in the mirror what they're doing with their fucking life, okay? Because I'm defensive of him, to be honest, because he's a good kid doing it the right way. Am I allowed to say that word?
Of course, man.
Yeah. And so that's first. Let's get that out of the way. But let me talk about that video shoot, man. See, this is the problem when people look into this music industry. Why I am protective of these young men and women that I care about. Who thinks that an international superstar like Dominique Jones, Lil Baby, what did he show up at a shopping center with 2 iPhones and a buddy and said, hey, let's do a video? There were all corporate entities involved. It was a corporate transactional decision to do that. So some cop is going to sit there and get to podium and get a little publicity by ranting and raving without doing their homework. Do yourself a favor before you open your pie hole, okay? And do a little research. And then what you'd find out is that this is a professional video shoot in which major corporations are involved. And that's how these decisions are made. The problem is for some reason in this musical genre, people just assume the worst. They don't realize that there are massive corporations that are involved. I mean, look at the record labels that we're talking about. Look how much money people are spending to buy them. You know the people I'm talking about. I mean, people that you and I know have made hundreds of millions of dollars selling their labels. And so
that's my man Pete, man. It's my guy.
It's
300, really.
I mean, and so you're right.
You get it.
And so, by the way, he did call me afterwards and tell me when that happened that he and I were going to take up golf. So when he's watching this, I'm still waiting. I don't play golf. He doesn't play golf. But I told him we'd be the 2 best dressed guy at the course. We're never going to play. We're just going to eat sandwiches.
Right. Hey, the 300 million, that is time for golf. It's time for golf. Like no more basketball.
Nobody deserves it more than Pierre Thomas and his family and Kevin Lee, Coach K. I mean, just 2 of the greatest guys. But again, it just shows you that this industry is so professional and people don't want to realize it. So they want to look at the music, they want to look at the lyrics, and they want to, say that we could read through it and not recognize that, for example, when a song comes out, and I'm not, and Ack, let me tell you something. I'm not talking about in some performer, some little gang, right, that pretends they're like record label. I'm not stupid. Like you and I both know that takes place. They got one guy that shows up at a studio 2 times a year that has 812 followers. We're not talking about that, okay? We're talking about like real successful musicians. They have general counsel. They have transactional lawyers. They have people that are studying these lyrics and giving them the A-OK before they come out, okay? So if these major corporations are saying, yes, this song is okay, then why is some cop or some law enforcement officer, some prosecutor going to come in at the last minute and say, yeah, this is a signal. There's some meaning to this. Listen, man, you're not even involved in this business, okay? These people are. These are major corporations being sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not going to let a song go out that they think in any way is inviting and encouraging and catalyzing violence.
How do you counteract that in the interim, right? Like, you mentioned, at least with the YFN case, it got to a point where Fonnie Willis herself actually wrote a letter on Lucci's behalf that basically kind of agreed with him being released and that case being resolved in the manner it did. When you hear that maybe a friend of yours, Dominique, is being targeted, do you try to approach Fonnie and be like, hey, listen, or is that ever a strategy? Like you hear something might be happening and you approach the DA trying to figure it out or trying to at least clarify to be like, hey, listen, this is going to be a dumb move if you guys pull this button or press this trigger. Because here's the thing. Once they do that, it's years gone off of that person's life. And, these guys are in the height of their career. Their career could be irreparably damaged. So how do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, we just have ways of professionally, keeping a check on these situations. And that's how we're just always going to do that for the people that we care about. There's certain people you talk to, it's all on the up and up. It's all highly professional. And so you just got to be really careful about what's in the rumor mill and what's reality and what's not.
So for the record, is that a true rumor or is it more of just
it's a rumor.
Chatter?
It's chatter.
Yeah,
it's chatter. I mean, who knows what's going on in this crazy world where this profession's being targeted right now? But like you said, a lot of lessons have been learned on cases consistently falling apart. But it's chatter. And it's chatter for a guy that's done so much for the community, never stops giving to the community.
The wait is almost over. The all-new Gun Lake Casino Resort.
And so that's all I can say is he does nothing but continuously impress me and everybody in my office and everybody in Atlanta, because everybody wants to touch him, everybody wants to be part of him, everybody wants him in their restaurant. Everybody wants some part of him right now.
Speaking about conflict of interest and kind of honing in on the discussion we wanted to get to, you represented YB, young boy. You came in and seemingly swiftly, because I'm not going to lie, I thought it was looking bad. I'm like, he has a state case there. He's violating this case, the house arrest situation in Utah, but that's federal. Also, there's a gun case. That's the main case for that. And you came in and you got something I've never seen before. It was like, hey, we're doing this global plea. And, I saw you, I think you were virtual in one of the cases, but you were there pretty much like, looking sharp as ever, getting a really favorable outcome for him. Because a lot of people thought he was going to be going away for maybe the latter part of maybe 10 years or so. And he's free now.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in that, and how, like, you got to give us some of the secret sauce? I know sometimes people don't like letting people into the kitchen to see how this stuff is being done, but how do you get to that point of even getting that type of plea?
Yeah, so it goes back a few steps. So he had the case in Baton Rouge, and so he had tried to get out on bond in that case, and he had that case, the gun case there, the video shoot case, had started out as a state case. Then they changed it, and the feds took it under a 922G, possession of firearm, convicted felon. It was very, very confusing because it involved the whole notion of a video shoot and having 24/7 videographers around you. And so I wasn't representing him, but he had his bond revoked because he had gotten arrested in California. And so he tried to get out a couple times, and then his team reached out to me, put me on a Zoom, and said, "Hey, we'd like you to get involved." I did my due diligence, and I knew he had the same attorneys in Baton Rouge that he had since he was like 14 years old, and I knew that these folks really cared about him, like they really cared about him like he was their own child. It was like a very paternal relationship. And so I said, I'll help, but you can't get rid of these folks. I'm not poaching. Like, these guys, they love him, and as long as they're in, I'll do that. I didn't really have a relationship with them, but that's what our due diligence dictated, and they were like, all fine. And so we took a different approach, and we had this really long hearing down in Baton Rouge. I guess it was like 2020, 2021. No, it was December 2020, because we were all wearing masks and stuff, and we started on a Monday and finished the next Monday. And we did the motion to suppress, and we did the bail review. And at that time, it was Main Justice going after him. So Main Justice out of DC was combining with the Baton Rouge U.S. Attorney's Office. And
what's Main Justice?
Main Justice means the actual just DOJ in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
They sent their unit down to work on it.
Is that common?
It happens sometimes. Sometimes it happens in maybe smaller jurisdictions. They'll send their troops in, so to speak. And so we took a different tactic. I took a different tactic, which was that, hey, they're really, because the LA case against them seemed kind of like a throwdown, simple gun case that shouldn't be a federal case. And we presented it really differently to the court. And this judge, at the end of this hearing, let him out. And she let him out under the circumstances that it seems like that's what Diddy's people were trying to get, right? We got 24/7 security. But what I argued is let him go to Utah, because he had that relationship to Utah from AmeriCorps. When he was 12 years old, someone from AmeriCorps got to know him that came in from Utah, and became really close, became like a second family to him. So he bought a home there to be close to that family. So I said to the judge, I tell you what, Judge, let's get him out of Baton Rouge. Let's let him go to Utah. He's got people there. And the judge said, yes, 24/7 security. So we got him out. And then he went there. And then we continued fighting the Baton Rouge case, which was very complex because the courts are constantly battling over the possession of firearm by convicted felon. It's still being heavily litigated.
By the way, not to cut you off,
No,
even though I am. So I went to he called it Gravedigger Mountain up there in Utah. How do you like
which house? Because he's been in several. The big one,
the last one.
Okay,
the last one,
that giant one.
Yeah. So it's literally on the mountain. So when you're kind of like trying to put together this bail package for someone like that, there's a lot of, like, I've been up there. That's an expensive thing that I could easily tell. He's paying an arm and a leg to be free. He has so much, like, it was one of the most complex, I think it was like this, private militia group that was his security. Yeah. Like they were like really, I went there, there's like 5 checkpoints. They were pretty good. And I was like, he's got to be paying out the ass for this. Do you, when these things happen, do you kind of pull, of course he got a lot of money. Do you pull him to the side and be like, hey, listen, I'm going to suggest this, but you're going to need a lot of capital. You work with musicians. Do you pull their record label in? Because I know even with the Dirk situation, there is a promise that Alamo will put up money.
Right.
How does that negotiation happen? Do you facilitate it, or do you let the money stuff, the client and maybe their accountants figure out how they could kind of drum up whatever that you need to present?
Yeah. So first, let me tell you, when I along with his team in Baton Rouge, when we got him out, it wasn't that house. It was the house he owned at the time, which was maybe 3,000 square feet, if not 2,500 square feet. It was very modest because at that time it was just a home to be close to this wonderful family that he treated as a second family, and they are like his second family. So when he moved afterwards, I didn't have anything to do with that. I should say I heard about that when I got hired on what you just talked about 10 minutes ago, which was the new case in Utah.
So you didn't stay on for the whole thing?
No, I did, but I didn't know that he was moving. I did my job, and then that was it. He got out, and then the motion to suppress issue just got tied up in the appellate courts. Him moving around was a whole separate issue.
Well, what was the deal with that? Because I remember it felt like, and shout out to all the Young Boy fan pages, I felt like he got good results, then the government appealed, right?
Yes. You're exactly right. So we got most of the gun case thrown out by the district court judge. She wrote an amazing order, long order, threw it out. Then they appealed. But there was still life in the issue because of the appellate courts continuing to fight over, and it's still going on right now, the issue of the collateral consequence of gun possession. Like, should there be an across-the-board possession of firearm by convicted felon prohibition? And so there was still life in that issue, but we were also litigating the issue of the videographers and whose property the videos were, things like that, because the video of the gun. So we were just mounting in litigation, and then so apparently he moves to the bigger house, and then I'll get to a second. Then the whole Utah case happens. But before we get to that, I don't get too deep into the weeds. Now, when we're putting a package together, I'll vet. I'll say, no, that's not a real security company. We need a real security company. We don't need friends. We need, a high-end security company. That house is kind of shaky, and so I'll do things like that. But I leave it to others to look for the resources. I'm not gonna do that. Okay. I'll just at the end say that looks good and that doesn't look good. So going to him. So eventually he picks up the other cases in Utah while he's on bond. And so
when you get that call, you're like, fuck, bro. Like, what? Like, not something else.
I was just, I was blown away.
Yeah.
But there's not time to kind of panic. So I assembled my team in Utah. Fortunately, I have people everywhere. And I put together the best team in Utah, the best. I mean, these guys, Jeremy Delacino, John Williams, these are all-star lawyers. And, we took one of our associates, who's my son, Zach Finling, and we just kind of convened, and we just kind of had a game plan. And eventually, that game plan was, let's get this Louisiana case out. Let's just get everything to Utah, because the Utah people, we were in constant conversation with them. And one of the things we talked about was the gun cases. Like, they were very well aware of the nuances of 922G, and they had a certain take on Kentrell Galling. I call him Kentrell. They had a certain take on him. And they really didn't look at him with the lens of that he was a gangbanger. They just didn't. They just didn't have that perception of him. They really looked at him as a young guy that kind of came out of the blue, made a lot of money quickly, and they just didn't have that horrible negative read. And so we kept on, and I kept on telling them.
Also, by the way, it was the view, because I know that's two different districts.
Yeah.
Did you guys like look into whether that district maybe viewed that, because there's been so many appeals that surrounded that issue. Did you guys look to see if the district that Utah is in, they probably viewed it a little bit favorably? That could possibly, if the case was moved,
he was never going to get looked at that favorably in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
I mean, he had history.
Well, I was just talking about just the charge, that particular charge.
He just we thought we had a really fair judge in Baton Rouge, a very fair judge, but we felt like if we can get everything in Utah, we can get things done, because I wanted him to have this life, and I didn't want it to be 10 years. And so we went back and forth and back and forth, and the whole goal was to recognize the weaknesses in their cases and the strengths of their cases, and reach a part of the negotiation that would give him the opportunity to get back to his family, to his children, and have a career. And honestly, career was the last thing, because he has these kids and he has his family, and I just wanted to get him back to his family, because I look at Kentrell as just this young guy that started so young, and so I just wanted to kind of deliver him to everybody, and that just stayed laser beam focus on getting him out and making it happen as quickly as possible. And it was literally like nonstop negotiation, and we reached this resolution. And then, of course, you probably noticed we got him another 93 days back, and that's really what got him out. I mean, even sooner, because everybody was shocked that all of a sudden he was out, because we had do a little work, and we got him yet another 93 days. And look, I'll agree with you. It's got to be one of the greatest deals, the greatest negotiations that I've seen. I mean, we get phone calls from lawyers all over the country, just going, what happened? How did that happen?
He's been pretty lucky. He's been pretty. Well, first of all, the other case, the one where while he was on bond for the Louisiana case, he caught the other case, which should have been state, but California picked it up as federal. He actually beat that one.
He did.
Which I think that's also, people hear about the feds being unbeatable, this and third. Anyway, now we get to the current big boy going on.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you felt conflicted, because after just getting an amazing deal for Young Boy, you are called to represent someone who he might not get along with too well. And we're talking about Dirk Banks, okay? AKA Lil Durk. How did you get involved with that situation? And what was your first thoughts initially, just even seeing what he was being alleged to have done?
Yeah. So I don't really...
My mom said I'm not like anyone else. She's right.
I train like an adult, but I'm not an adult.
We train like athletes. We need doctors trained for kids.
My growth plates are working overtime.
So get me care, like nowhere else.
I won't be a kid forever, so let's get this right.
Kids' bones and muscles are unique. That's why they need the care found at Children's Hospital of Michigan.
For our pediatric, orthopedic, and sports medicine specialists, treating kids isn't part of what we do. It's everything we do.
look at anybody that likes and dislikes anybody. Like, I know people, I don't really spend a lot of time looking at DMs, but I know people are commenting, going, you got to pick one side. I don't want to pick one side. I'm a criminal defense attorney, man.
Yeah. They try to have me pick because I'm cool with both guys. I was on the phone with Dirk like yesterday, and of course, young boy called me like 2 days before. So you know what I mean? Like, I'm the media, and I love both guys.
And I don't even, literally does not even enter my mind space. I'm just fighting for everybody as they come to me. My office is Switzerland. I mean, we're a safe space. We're a neutral space. I mean, if you come to my office, you got to come when you're in Atlanta. I try to make it like a place that everybody enjoys coming to. Cool artwork. We support the local graffiti community. And I don't look at it like that. I don't pick anybody one side over the next. And here's the crazy thing. Not one client has ever said anything to me about representing anybody else. No, man, when all's said and done, nobody wants anybody to go to jail when they haven't done anything wrong. Nobody wants anybody to be in a cage when they don't need to be in a cage. Maybe they have disagreements out in the street about music, whatever it is, and do their thing and whatever it is. But when it comes to being caged for bullshit cases, nobody wants to see anybody rot in a cage, eat shitty food, be in an overcrowded jail for 3 years, waiting to go to court because a prosecutor can't pull their shit together. Nobody wishes that on anybody. And they know that when they come to me, I'm gonna do nothing but fight for them for the best, man. I'm just not thinking about you in front of me. Like, I'm being when it comes to Kentrell Golden, young boy, man, I think very much about that young kid that AmeriCorps came and saw when he was young. Like, I look at him and I look in his eyes and I see that, like, that young kid that just had fame and fortune so early. And I just want to do everything I can to help get to him and get him out of there so he can live his life. And the next person, I get the phone call on Dirk, same thing. Never heard anything but good things about him.
Do you have to compartmentalize though? Because when you get deeper into just the allegations in the case, they're accusing Dirk of doing something to someone who is affiliated with Youngboy, right? And that might, then just put you in a little bit of a pickle because, again, you kind of just represented one guy. Now you're representing this other guy who, going back to the takeoff situation, right? Like, you would recuse yourself from that one. Right. But here, probably just not as close. And you're just doing what you do an amazing job at defending, innocent people. But do you kind of get into that situation where you're like, oh, snap, this guy was kind of accused in a roundabout way of doing something to someone who could have been associated with the last guy I represented? I don't want to be in a position where they're asking me things like, yo, hey, so what about, or they even blame me like, well, you got that guy off, you better get me off, or you picked a side or something.
Yeah,
like
so before everybody, I represented King Von.
Yeah, that is true. Rest in peace, Dave Von Bennett.
I don't even look at it that way. It never even entered my mind.
Did you represent him for the Atlanta case, the shooting one?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which case went away. And
some people felt like the feds were going to pick that up. The way how they just unceremoniously just dropped it.
Yeah, not that I had word of, at least when I was involved in the case. And so that whole notion of a conflict never really, never entered my mind.
Could you clear one? And I'm sorry for cutting you off. Could you clear one thing up with that? Because there's so much internet chatter about that case. There's some people who feel like, hey, Dirk basically blamed it on Vaughn since he died, and that's why the case went away. Could you give us a little bit more clarity to just how that case was resolved from your perspective?
Yeah, so I can't because a lot of that has been wrapped up in our protective order, so I can't even talk about it. Yeah, Not that it's part of the case, but it is in a segment of information that I'm prohibited from talking about.
Okay, so now you get the call from Dirk. This is a tough one.
Yeah,
I've seen the works of miracles. I think this might be part in the Red Sea if you get it done. I'm a notorious pocket watcher, and I think this is the best time to do it. Can we get some? It doesn't have to be about this Dirk situation, but what is the $1 billion lawyer calling if somebody says, yo, I've been hit with a RICO, or yo, they say I murdered someone, or hey, they say I'm up for some type of sex trafficking. Seeing that some of these guys are probably going to be willing to take it to trial, what figure do you normally kind of throw out there that they know that's where we're at?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Man, you know I'm not going to answer that, but let me go ahead. I love the way.
I set it up, right?
Oh man, it was presented.
I set it up too.
God, it was presented
I
beautifully.
heard $3 million though. I heard you got $3 million for 1 month of work before.
That was presented very nicely, man.
No comment on that one either.
So
New York Times put that out.
So let me say this. One of the things that's unique about our office is, as you know, most criminal defense attorneys is 1 or 2 people. I mean, we have a team of lawyers. 85% of people come in, they're using, there's so many cases going on. People come in and they want to use one of the other lawyers in the Findling law firm. I mean, they don't even meet with me because everybody else has established a great reputation. So I'm not meeting with everybody. Not everybody is using me. But in terms of setting a fee, one of the things that we do that I think is a little bit different is it takes us a while to set a fee. We have to really look into the case. I have never charged a consultation fee, whatever they call it. Never done that one time in my life.
Really?
Oh man, I'm going to charge you for like 1 hour to sit and talk.
What's the hourly fee at, man? I've heard Taco Pina said he's taxing them at like $3,000 an hour or $2,500. I'm like, whoa, hit him over the head. Well, why don't you? I've heard top tier lawyers. We're talking about the 1,200 range and above. So if we're talking about the good guys, now if you get somebody below 1,000, they could be good as well. But the top tier guys charge.
Yeah.
That.
So most individuals can't do an hourly, right? Because an hourly can grow so exponentially, man. It's like an hourly is like the movie Alien. It starts with 1, then it's 2, then it's 4, then it's 8, then it's 16. And before you know it, the bills are out of control. And when you're fighting for an individual, it's very, very difficult to get to that point where you're like, hey, we're going to trial, man. Here, here's my hours. So you got to be really careful. There are certain clients that are famous clients that are like a corporation, and you can, but very few and far between. I don't care how well you're doing, because it could start creeping into the 7 figures quickly, and so you got to really hit a number. When you do hourly, yes. I mean, our hourlies, mine's well over 2,000. But it's got to be the right case, and when it's the right case, then the person that's paying that, they don't really give a shit that it's over $2,000 an hour. They just want you to fight for their freedom.
Yeah.
But you have to let them know, like from a business standpoint, like, hey, we're going to do it hourly. Like, boom, at the end of a day, it could be with associates, you just had a $27,500 day. That's why hourlies are very, very tricky. And so, but we're different because we have a team of people. So there's so many cases going on, and my people are like winning cases left and right. And they're not charging that.
So do you guys usually be like, hey, listen, you called an attempted murder. This is $250,000. We're going to take care of it all the way throughout. Whether we get a plea, whether we go to trial, whether this thing gets dropped, just flat fee. Is that how you guys?
Yeah. There's a lot of flat fees, and a lot of times there won't be like a separate fee for trial because generally speaking, sometimes there is there is a fee, like if a trial goes past a certain amount of time, because you don't want to wind up in a year trial, right?
Yeah.
And you're screwed. But it's not uncommon to not have a trial fee because you don't want anybody ever say, "Hey, bro, you tried the case to make another $50,000." So you got to be really careful with that. So for the everyday person, you really have to do a set fee, which is the ethical way to do it. And we never have anybody complain ever.
What about, okay, you're representing the rapper. His income is now cut off. He got bills. His mama, 15 baby mamas want money. He's kind of tapped out, but he's hitting you with the IOU. He's like, yo, you get me off of this junk, my first day out song and that record deal, I'm going to pay you back on the back end, my brother.
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
Oh, no?
Zero chance, man.
So none of that, you're not investing in it.
I love them, but not that much. Plus, it's unethical. Yeah. You can't have a contingency in a criminal case.
Yeah, no IOUs. Okay.
No IOUs, because that never works.
Okay. All right.
And plus, you just don't want to be a bill collector in the middle of a case.
True.
That's a bad situation, man.
True.
Just get the money out of the way.
Yeah.
And don't bitch and cry. And just fight for somebody, because we're freedom fighters.
Yeah.
You want to take the and I will tell you the lion's share. I mean, look, 95% of our clients are not famous people. Right?
I'd imagine.
Yeah, but really, a lot of these super successful performers, man, they've been through it. They've been through transactional lawyers, entertainment lawyers. They've been in litigation. They have an incredible appreciation of good legal work. And you'd be surprised, a lot of them are like, what's the fee? Let's take care of business and let's fight the case. And that's the end of it.
What do you see more? And again, this is you're probably just way too up there. You don't call yourself the $1 billion lawyer for nothing.
I never called myself that.
No, they refer to as it. I think New York Times and a bunch of other outlets. And
so
WXL did.
Dolph was one.
Oh, Dolph did. Yeah.
Dolph,
Shots my man.
Dolph in L.A.
Rest in peace,
Shock,
Dolph.
you look at my face on a video. I'm like, what did he say? And then Pierre, that night, and my son were blowing up my phone. That night I was in LA. I didn't even hear him say it.
Yeah.
They're like, what's #1 billion lawyer? #billion. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know if I had an Instagram account then. And I think they were like, yeah, Dolph just called you that. And everybody's hashtagging $1 billion lawyer. And I said, I didn't even hear him say it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In situations like that, right? Because obviously now, like, there is an element of like publicity could lead to more client and could lead to maybe you charging higher rates, right? Do you ever, not necessarily for just like give me a shout out and you could pay less, but like you see a case that might be attractive. Also that association could probably help raise your profile and you probably don't charge. I'm wondering if you may cut a break with those guys. No breaks. They got to come with a bag.
No. Yeah. I like that. Kelvin, write that down. I need to use that, man.
They got to come with that bag, man.
So that's where lawyers make the mistake. So just because there's a deceased person, that shouldn't be it's just something immoral about thinking that that's how you're going to build your business. You build your business through creative and great lawyering, not because someone's charged with a crime. And so I saw that when I was a public defender. I would watch, there was like a big case going on. I see lawyers come and they'd be begging the judge to get appointed because it was a triple murder case. And I'd be like, that's just gross.
Yeah.
I'm a public defender. And you could research it. Nobody was winning cases more than me. I was getting national publicity when I was 26 years old. I mean, literally national publicity, just banging out not guilties after not guilties. And I'm watching these lawyers. I'm like, I'm just trying to work on my art and get people and fight these cases. And I think the way you build it is you get that big case, but you show the world who you are. And that's how you're going to get it. You're not going to get it by like cutting anybody a deal because at some point you're going to resent it, right? Because you're going to get another case and be like, damn, I can't believe I cut this guy a break and now this guy's paying me more. You don't want to really get into that. That's a bad scenario to get into.
Okay, now I know we have protective orders, but we want to get to this Dirk case as much as we can. And how much of, I mean, you break down the allegations. We've seen some stuff written in court, whether it's these memorandums in support of, trying to get him bail. We've seen a possible opening for a new bail hearing that could possibly get him out. What's the current status? And for everything we've heard about it, give us, you're seeing things we don't see, and obviously you probably can't say those things, but just give us as much as you know about the case currently and where it's at and how's your feeling towards it.
Yeah. So first of all, Dirk is just a super nice and respectful guy. I mean, I just can't even explain how respectful he is of me, of my office, of my time. And I would say otherwise. I mean, I've met everybody in this profession, and some people, most people I really have a great fondness for. This guy's top of the top. I mean, what a nice and respectful young man he is. And so the case is as follows. So there was an indictment that did not name him, right? It named others, and then there was an unindicted person. And then 3 weeks later, that indictment was what's called the first superseding indictment, and it does name him. The indictment was identical, except the unnamed person now became Dirk Banks. And this is the really important part, Ak. The second indictment, what's called the first superseding indictment, only had one new fact. It had one new fact, and that was it alleged that there was a video by Dirk that celebrated and monetized this killing, okay? And so that was the only fact. That was the only thing that distinguished. So if the government says, oh, it's no big deal, no harm, no foul, that's not true, because that's the one thing they added when they threw Dirk Banks into the indictment. And as soon as we got the indictment, we noticed, and we started hearing from people in the music world. People are like, this doesn't really make sense. That song, those lyrics were done a long time before that. I mean, we were hearing it from all different directions. We were hearing it from studio people. We were hearing it from people that wear suits to work every day, executives.
Exactly. Yep.
And so we were like, we got to get to work here. We got to figure this out. And so at the detention hearing, okay, we had this first detention hearing in December of 24. We go to the court and we say, first, this issue of leaving the country, it was all presented incorrectly. He had a few flights, and these flights, you have the incomplete itineraries. The complete itineraries show he was going to Dubai, and they didn't show that to the court.
Okay, so, and I know we want to get to that incomplete stuff, and we'll get to that, but so we kind of skipped out on the criminal complaint, right? So before we got to the second indictment, which is the first superseding, they arrested Dirk on a criminal complaint. Correct. And they cited that they believe he was trying to flee the country. Correct. And it felt like it was an agent who just wrote up this thing, got judge approval, right, got him arrested, and they felt that he was trying to book multiple flights to different places. What was the truth behind that from what you understand?
So thank you for context. So the criminal complaint did not have the complete itineraries. So we went to court and we were like, Judge, this was what was presented. Now here's the rest of the story. Here's the complete itinerary. And the complete itineraries weren't 3 different countries. Everything was going to be Dubai. They just didn't show you the last change. It was like, it was a flight Miami to Newark to, I can't remember, like say Rome. And then they didn't present the judge with the last part, okay, which was there to Dubai. Everything was going to Dubai, with the exception that everything was like row 52, middle seat. And respectfully, he's Lil Durk. He's internationally famous, and he just wasn't going to sit on the middle seat.
Yeah, come on, right?
3 different, parts of the itinerary. And so that's when it was this private flight. So there was no trying to throw confusion and head fakes. There was just this attempt to book several flights. I do that. I mean, I'll try to make arrangements, and if I can't get the right flight, we'll try again. And so that was that. And that was completely corrected. Nobody even tried to say that was wrong, because we presented evidence that this was the complete itinerary.
Was there, and I imagine the judge would probably ask this, or the prosecutor would probably suggest, did he have business in Dubai? What was the reason for him to go to Dubai?
He has a history of going to Dubai. I mean, he just has a history of going to Dubai. I mean, I live in Atlanta, and you try getting a flight to Dubai on a Thursday. People go for 3 nights to Dubai. It is really big in the music industry. It is just really, really big. He has a history of going to Dubai. It was nothing unusual. We had other proof of flights that he's taken to Dubai in the past 12 months, 13 months before then. So it was nothing unusual about him going to Dubai. And there was nothing to indicate that he was ever going to go and never come back. I mean, he wasn't going to, as I said in court that day, let's see, his dad, okay, Dante, gets out in 2019 and then goes into COVID. He wasn't going to leave the dad he waited a lifetime to be with. He wasn't going to leave his kids. He wasn't going to leave his career. He's a Lil Durk. Okay? So Lil Durk is not going to run away and live the rest of his life in Dubai. That's just stupidity. Okay, that was never going to happen.
Does Dubai have an extradition treaty with the United States? Because I guess people are wondering.
Yeah, so there's some complexity to it. We believe there's ways to have gotten him back, and it's like super complex. But there was a pattern of going there. It wasn't like he was going to a country that he'd never been to before. There was just a pattern of going there. And so the probation officer met with him that day, looked at all the evidence, and the probation officer came back and said, we don't think he's literally a threat to leave. We think he's...
Really?
Probation officer met with him, looked at the evidence, and said, we think he's not a flight risk, okay? We do think however, that, based on the charges, that the probation department said that he was a threat to the community or whatever, given the charges. But actually probation, different than the prosecutor and ultimately that magistrate, looked at the evidence and said, we don't think he's a flight risk. When you look at all the evidence, that's not the issue.
Okay,
the ultimate issue is the case itself. And
so that takes care of the flight. Now
Yes.
we're into this idea that he's involved in this superseding indictment, and they put this additional fact.
Right.
And this additional fact claims he's so brazen with what they call his bragging or braggadocious, speaking about the murder that they claim he was involved with, that he puts it on a song and depicts it and uses a news clip, correct?
Correct. And so we raised that the song, we have an affidavit from one of the producers, and we present it to the court. We go, look, this was the proverbial smoking gun of the indictment. This is what distinguishes this case from the first indictment. This is the only new fact they put in. So they must think that this is a home run. But this is provably false.
These are both done. USDA choice ribeye.
Must have cost a fortune, huh?
Oh, hi.
The lowest prices of any national grocery store. It's an Aldi thing.
Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
At Bell Tire, we're out to change the entire tire business.
We actually take care of our customers.
That's what makes us different. That and our one employee that happens to be a tire.
We're not your ordinary tire store because we're changing tires. Bell Tire.
Birthday party. Birthday princess party. Birthday Princessasaurus party. Get everything for every party on Amazon.
And if Ack or Drew or Kelvin goes into a grand jury and says something like that, we got to lawyer up because we just said something that's untrue to a grand jury. And so our point is somebody went to the grand jury and said this, which is absolutely false.
Is it proven that, again, I know it's listed in the superseding indictment, but the grand jury proceeding is supposed to be the secretive process that I'm pretty sure you don't even have the minutes or the transcript for it yet. Are you working off an assumption that it was presented to the grand jury since it's listed in the indictment, or are you trying to find that out still?
Man, it's like we're working together here. Ready? I'm going to get to that. Perfect question. That's my segue.
Okay.
So the prosecution stands up and they're just kind of coming up with some ideas. They start talking about these words and they come up with some stuff that we didn't really quite understand. And so a few weeks later, after he gets denied, I write them an email. And I said, hey, you made some reference to perhaps some videos or something. If you'd be kind enough to send them to me. And they send them to me that day. And
so this is you to the AUSA?
To AUSA. And all they were just these fan edits. That's all they were, fan edits. And the disappointing part is I truly believe that these prosecutors or the FBI, whoever they work with, did not understand the concept of fan edits. Just like they didn't understand that you don't show up at a studio, okay, on a Sunday and put out a song on Monday, that it takes half a year or a year, okay? Yeah. They clearly didn't understand the concept of fan edits. And so then we filed the motion to dismiss that I'm sure you read. And that was just filed last week, and that's going to take place on June 2nd. And in that, we now added the second producer, right? Because there's two producers.
One for Babyface, right?
Babyface, and he's just doing a feature, right? And so he's just throwing his stuff into, and we had to explain in the motion, we had to explain to the court, here's what a feature is, because nobody's done that. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But what we say in the motion is, because it's a big ask, it's cool, you're asking that the case be dismissed, but you and I both know that's a big ask.
Yeah.
And so if you see the crescendo is, we want it dismissed, Judge, because you just can't go to a grand jury, even if it's negligence. You can't put something that throws shade on the rest of the case. Alternatively, we need the minutes from the grand jury so we can all see what happened. So great question, great point, and that's the end of the motion. The motion, which we'll argue June 2nd, is, Judge, we think the case be dismissed. If anybody else said something that was false, they'd be in a lot of trouble. But if you think that's too big of an ask, at least let's see what happens.
Is June 2nd the oral argument for
The motion to dismiss.
Okay, the motion. Okay,
Yeah.
but also to try to compel the minutes as well, right?
Correct.
Or do you think you're going to get that before? Because that's going to be very. If you get it before, you get to walk in that court with like, hey, listen, it's right here. They presented it to these people to get an indictment.
We
it's a lie.
We've not gotten it.
Okay, they're not going to be as.
Yeah, we asked for it. And we've not gotten it. I mean,
It kind of looks like it's a little bit of egg on their face.
Yeah,
right?
we want it. Well,
if they're using FanNet, it's like that's crazy, right?
yeah. I mean, I'm surprised because in their most recent filing, it seems like they're possibly throwing the towel on the accuracy of that part of the indictment, and so. But look. Here's why it's a really important issue. You've obviously done a ton of cases. You're familiar with cases. If you were going to use seriology, toxicology, DNA, okay, accident reconstruction, anything that involves complexity in a case, the government, particularly the federal government, relies on experts. And you're right. You're right. I mean, people need to understand this is a federal case. I mean, we work hard on our state cases. But state cases, that's middle school basketball. We're now at the NBA, and we're at the highest level of the NBA right now. And so you'd expect that they would have sound engineers having analyzed this, right? You'd expect they'd have an expert coming in from some MBA program that studies music or whatever. I mean, that's out there to study this and give them some technology expert to have analyzed this. And apparently, that didn't take place. They didn't treat this like they would DNA. They didn't treat this like they would seriology or toxicology. Somebody just listened to some music and said, hey, this makes sense. Let's throw it in. And
can I counter that? So what if the AUSA says, well, we're going to do that for the trial, but because bail is discretionary, we don't need to do all that right now. We just basically the lyrics of the song, he's kind of like, it kind of closely matches the story. Do you think that might be a good enough argument to maybe deny the motion, not only to dismiss, but also the motion for him to get bail?
Here's why, good devil's advocate, but here's why I don't think that that's accurate. And the reason is because they went to a grand jury.
Okay.
And so you wouldn't go to a grand jury and say DNA proves that John Doe was at 101 Main Street on the day of this murder. You would go to a DNA expert, okay? You wouldn't say the blood splatter expert, just on your opinion, you'd have a blood splatter expert. And so they did this, and you would hope that there would be somebody that had advised them rather than just sitting around listening to music. But now falling back on some of the previous questions that you've asked, this is systemic when it comes to rap music, when it comes to hip hop, when it comes to these cases. This is no different than a cop sitting at a podium saying, you're a coward for doing a video at the shopping center, without going in the way before you do that and you damage somebody's reputation, to find out that corporate entities were involved in that decision-making process, right?
Yeah.
And so for some reason, when it comes to this group of people that are involved in rap music, hip hop music, people take shortcuts. And if you look at our brief, if you look at the motion and brief that we filed, we cite a lot of articles that are written, right? Rap on Trial, some of the other articles that have been written. There just seems to be this kind of abbreviated analysis, this conjecture, and this kind of prejudicial guesswork when it comes to people in this business. I don't know if what the origin of it is, and I'm not just talking about Dirk's case. I'm talking about all these cases. I'm talking about the way that you go after NBA YoungBoy doing a video in Baton Rouge and storm these guys. I mean, the behavior of those cops was unconscionable. The way they treated these young African-American men, just grotesque. And so it's the way that happens. It's the statement about a shopping center. It's charging Lucci with a murder case because he's driving a car in a neighborhood because he shouldn't be there. He's not entitled to drive in a neighborhood, and he was inviting problems. It's just what we consistently see everywhere when it comes to, and it's disproportionate. It's just disproportionate to people in this part of the music world.
No, you're absolutely right. I did have two questions. Don't know if you could answer them. Because when reading through your motion and everything you presented, I felt
critics and audiences are raving about The Accountant 2. It's so worth the watch on the big screen.
I just love accountants.
That's a coincidence? It's a blast. I think it'll be fun.
I think it might be fun too.
The Accountant 2, rated R.
Belgard is the #1 hardscapes brand in North America. We're pro-quality, pro-innovation, and pro-partnership because we understand what it takes to grow your business, and it's our business to make it happen. For all your projects, Belgard paves the way.
also more things might be happening. I was also thinking about the government's maybe answer, what their counter answer could be. Number one, have they submitted all the full discovery yet, or not yet?
It's as you know, in federal cases, it comes in tranches, and so it's rolling in, which is just the way it is.
Yeah, and the reason why I thought about that is like, if I'm the government and you're doing a motion to dismiss based on and complete legitimate point when you argue it logically, hey, you presented something to the grand jury that is non-factual, which you prejudiced my client, this is not how it works, we got to dismiss. But still, usually in these detention hearings, when I'm reading them, usually we will hear, hey, we had, and we did see some things about maybe not necessarily wiretaps, but intercepted calls or like text messages. Doesn't feel like there's any smoking gun where it's like, hey, this is the shooter who's saying Dirk paid him and here's the money. And I've been waiting to see if they have anything like that. Or is it just like this like trudged together bullshit where it's like, yeah, well, apparently his team used a business card and it's his business. And well, he's rapping about something that kind of loosely relates to the crime. And the other guys who we think did it, that's his friends. Those seem like very loose. And if you look at each of those situations just by itself, it looks like bullshit. Like you could deconstruct all of those and it doesn't look like they have a case. But I don't know if they have something else that they're like, hey, no, we have a bunch of guys that we flipped. Have you been, I don't know if you could say it, are you aware of anything else beyond these lyrics that they kind of have that they're going to present or try to either keep them in jail or that's definitely their strategy in how they try to prove this?
I don't know what their strategy are, what their strategy is. I have to respect, the protective order. But we just say we wait patiently, and as different tranches. Never thought I'd say the word tranche before, but it's like part of the business now. As they come in, we go through everything, and we're as anxious as you and everybody is to go through those. And then what we do is we keep Dirk informed, and we're grateful that there is a system of communicating not only in person, but we're able to Zoom with him as much as we want. And so we get it, we go through it with them, and we're just as anxious as anybody, as things come in. But you're the motion to dismiss and the responses that are coming, you're kind of up to date with everybody. Obviously, there's other things that are covered by the protective order.
Could you explain to some of the folks out there who might just not understand completely what they're alleging, but what that means legally? What has to be proven for that to be an actual conviction? For example, we hear murder for hire.
Yeah.
What does that mean federally?
It means a potential life sentence.
Okay, but
that's the biggest thing it means.
Now, just okay.
It means that you are responsible for orchestrating something that you might not have physically been part of it, but you're responsible for orchestrating it. And then there's alternative aiding and abetting. And so it's just different ways of saying that you may be on the outside, but you are the person that organized and directed. And so that's what we have to be aware of as we defend the case.
Do they need to prove, like, for example, because again, we keep hearing murder for hire. I've never heard once how much money, right? We never heard, okay, this is how the transaction was happened. The only thing we heard via the indictment, hey, there was a conversation about payment at some In-N-Out burger spot, right? And we don't know, okay, this guy, and then we hear other inquiries of people supposedly saying, what's up with the money? But we never hear someone say, hey, I got the money. I got the 50,000 or the 80,000, whatever it could be. And I'm going to give you this. Dirk sent it to me, wired it to me, or he cashed out it, whatever. Obviously wouldn't do that. But do they have to prove in a murder for hire that someone got paid?
That is a very important part of their case. So you bring up a great point because, you look at these indictments that I call speaking indictments, where everything's just laid out. Oh my God. And so really I'm kind of limited because of the protective order to what's in that indictment to a certain degree, right? This is a speaking indictment, but you're accurate. It speaks, but it leaves a lot blank. And I think that a jury would have expectations of the government being able to show that some of these elements have taken place. They're just not going to take the government's word for it. The government's going to have to show, there's going to have to be some evidence, not just an opinion, especially because most federal judges now in these speaking indictments, they do not send the indictments out for that exact reason. A lot of judges are of the opinion, I'm not sending it out, prove your case, and then we'll just tell them the elements of the charged offenses. But I'm not going to let you kind of get through the back door, what you didn't get in through the front door.
Yeah, that's, hopefully that happens more often. So, likelihood of a plea. I think a lot of people have seen, like, this seems like it's a do or die thing. This is kind of like it's going to be like a 1 or 0 type of situation. You're either or you're not. Is Dirk, from your understanding, or you as a lawyer right now, as his criminal attorney, are you open to possible conversations about plea deals? Are you thinking, no, we're going all the way? Would you entertain it, just entertain it, because that's your job to listen to it and maybe present it to Dirk, or that's just off the table?
It's a conspiracy to commit murder case. It's an all or nothing case, and he did not participate in a conspiracy to commit murder. And so there is no alternative. It's a life sentence, potential life sentence. So this case is going to go to 12 people.
What's the timeline on that looking like? I've seen a lot of people when it came to I'm even surprised that the judge said no to a continuation for Diddy's case, and they're like, May 5th, you guys are picking a jury. That would mean that within a year, and obviously the federal courts move way faster than bogged down state courts. When do you think that Dirk will possibly get to a trial?
So we have an October trial date, and so our eyes are on that October trial date. A lot is dictated by how much evidence comes in, and the difference between our case and that case is that's a single defended case. That's a one-person case.
Yeah, okay.
So it's really difficult. Generally speaking, when you have a one-person defendant case and you don't have a zillion different parties, your dates stick a lot more. But when you have a half dozen people and you have different lawyers making different arguments saying, this wasn't made available to me, this wasn't made available to me, you have 6 different arguments. So we look at the October date, and that's our mindset is the October date. But we're also extremely mindful of the fact that we got a half dozen lawyers, a half dozen schedules. And so who knows what will happen. But right now we're focused on October. Whether that happens or not it's not unique because there's so many different parties that are involved.
Do you expect any more superseding indictments? Or do you think what we have now is probably what will be taken to trial?
I just don't ever guess that. I always take the position on superseding indictments of these allegations are from several years ago now. You've had plenty of time to think it through. Why are you going to supersede? You've had the opportunity to think it through.
I feel like they're always trying to keep an investigation going, right? And I think they're trying to flip people. Hey, by the way, and I think the protective order will bar you from answering this, but I'll ask it anyway. this is internet chatter. The internet has eyeballed or pointed at one guy, some guy named OTF Jam. They claim he's the co-operant. Is he the co-operant?
Yeah, I can't really comment on anything that's outside of the indictment.
Are there any co-operants?
I just
had to ask.
Yeah.
I had to ask. Okay. Music-wise, so he dropped an album. I kind of am a little bit familiar with how these works when you're in a case where you're fighting for your life. It's a criminal case, and sometimes music or your artistic expression might be weaponized by the legal system or the justice system to try to keep you in jail or try to, add on maybe additional charges or be additional evidence or overt acts, as they call it, right? In conspiracy cases. Do you have that conversation with him? Like, for example, his last album came out. Do you say, hey, listen, we have a special team that we should look at this at? Or do you talk to his record label and say, hey, listen, you guys have general counsel in this and third. You guys should scour this music. And listen, you can run it by us, but anything that's maybe not above,
yeah, there's a full circle of people that are concerned and looking. But he is in an industry unto himself, and he is entitled to express himself through his business and let his business continue. He's got a family. He's got people that are part of his musical world that are dependent on him, and it shouldn't all come to a full stop. So we have trust in them, but there's a full circle of people that have their eyes and ears on everything.
Thoughts on prosecutors, especially in RICO cases, using lyrics, using hand signs that might be in videos, using anything that could be seen as art that they're monetizing, and be like, well, you're wearing this in this video, you must be a blood. Or you're saying this in this video, it means you're taunting these other guys, right? When, I don't think we run into those problems with other types of art. People aren't getting indicted and be like, well, listen, you acted in this movie as this killer.
Yeah.
You've been wanted to kill people,
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about lyrics and stuff?
I mean, I think it's just pathetic. I think it's pathetic that people are trying to exercise their First Amendment rights and express their art form. I think these are brilliant artists, and clearly somebody out there wants to listen to it.
I want an ab.
Every reason is the right reason to Orange Theory. Book your free class today.
Get 2 breakfast sandwiches for $6 at Tim Hortons. Made with freshly cracked eggs. Made to order and made for your morning. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. Only at your neighborhood Tim Hortons.
Let's face it, guys only want one thing.
Wish I had something natural instead of this synthetic body wash. Sydney Sweeney, body wash genie?
Dr. Squatch Body Wash. For men who prefer natural.
I mean, and I read this Harvard Business Review about the number of suburban white kids that are listening to this music.
Yeah.
And so, it's being made for the masses. Okay. No one's writing a song just so they could talk about what they want to do next week. They're doing it to make money. This is capitalism. Okay. And so to sit there and get on the other side of capitalism and say, we're now going to pick apart your music that's been vetted by transactional lawyers, that's been vetted by industry people, and say that we think sitting in our offices in our ivory towers, okay, we think it has meaning to it, is just pathetic because nobody else is doing that. Like I said, nobody else is sitting there indicting Quentin Tarantino. Man, he's got some violent crap out there. And I've seen the same studies you have where they could take the same lyrics and have somebody rap it, and then somebody with a little banjo, and the people that listen to it are going to say, this guy that's doing it rap is violent, and this guy doing it as a country song is not violent. And so there's a predisposition to how people treat it. But that's one thing for a fan base to have a predisposition. That's one thing for lay people to have a predisposition. But to have law enforcement, to have prosecutors that sit in their office and study music, look at Instagram, and try to associate some type of indication that that's a crime or a piece to a puzzle that adds up to a crime is really sad. And I think it just isolates and targets this industry.
What's the next year looks like for you? Clearly you have this Dirk case coming up. I feel like in the last 2 or 3 years, I've really seen the profile and stock of a lot of attorneys. Not only does it seem of utmost importance because a lot of rappers we love are catching these unfortunate cases, but we're realizing also the guys who are doing a good job of helping these rappers or these musicians out. You're one of them. Your profile's growing. Are you just, hey, I'm just gonna knock out these cases? It feels like you should be doing a TV show, man. It feels like you should be doing a series, man. Like you walk like a star, my guy.
I'm on the go. I mean, I'm on airplanes. We have cases going on in 12, 14 states right now. I love my team. I love the lawyers on my team. I love how hard everybody works. But I have other things I'm interested in. I'm really concerned about people in some of the deep southern states that aren't getting proper representation because of their economic status. I want to make sure that I'm keeping focused on my non-paying issues that I care about and I love as well. That's really important to me. So if you look at my history, you'll see whether it's working on prisoner reentry issues or driving with one of my great friends, Rick Jones, executive director of the Neighborhood Defender Service. It used to be of Harlem, now it's everywhere. He and I driving through the heart of the South, interviewing people about how we can bring some gravitas to get them better, public defense services. That's stuff that I care about.